doesn't get discussed about him that makes him unlike most guys that play that?
I don't know. I don't know enough about the rest of those guys to answer that properly. I mean, he brings, in my eyes, my estimation, he brings everything. You know, the thing that he cares about is not just the players, he cares about the coaches. That's something that I've never heard a player talk to me about the coaches the way that Chris does. He'll talk about the guys and their futures, and you know, we tend to allow coaches a platform to coach so they can get used to speaking to the team in front of, you know, in certain environments. And Chris understands how important that is because he knows that some of these guys may get a chance to be a head coach someday. I really think he wants to win to help those guys. And I've never heard a player talk about that. Never heard a player show that kind of care factor for an assistant coach. You know, that's, if I had to think of anything, I've never had a player express that. I think players do, but I've just never had one express it.
Right. Is there any kind of team bonding on this trip at all, or were you able to do that?
No, I mean, we spent a lot of time in the gym together. Our practices have been really good on this trip. A 1 hour practice has turned into a 2.5, 3 hour practice just because guys, we didn't have anything else to do. So we just stayed and goofed around. Maybe it wasn't 3, but it was a long time. We did get to go to Hinkle Fieldhouse and talk about the history of that place and Oscar Robertson's impact, Crispus Attucks High School. There's a number of things that happened there that we had a chance to talk about. I think this generation is so young, when they look at Butler, they just think of Brad Stevens, I would imagine. Right. And we talked about the significance of that particular place as it relates to John Wooden, Indiana basketball. The first, you know, high school state high school championship was won there. I think it was Oscar Robertson's team, you know, and we talked about a number of those historical reference points just because we practiced there. And I think our guys, they were pretty surprised that it all happened at that spot.
I was just looking up the number of the coaches in the league, because obviously look at the NFL, we have just one African American. The NBA has 14 African American coaches. Then you've got Spoelstra and Borrego, that's 16 minorities. That's more than half of the league. What is it about the NBA that's enabled? I don't want to say enabled, but that has happened in this league. What is it about this league that's
it's hard to say. I think it just hasn't been a conversation. It's been an action, and it's been something that has been spearheaded by Adam Silver, but also the players and other coaches have talked about just making sure that everybody gets an opportunity. And we don't have any rules in place like the Rooney Rule, but I do feel like there's an intention to not just have Black coaches in these positions, to just make sure everybody gets a chance. And I think the experience that comes from interviewing is essential. And I think that's helped teams to see that, you know, there's some talented coaches out there, Black, white, and brown. And it's led to more African Americans being in position. But I hope that the conversation that's turned into action has led to a more level field. And I hope it stays that way. Not just so Black coaches can have jobs. I've been pretty, you know, intentional about that. I'm not looking for a handout. I think for me, I'm looking for a level playing ground. And I think that's what's helped this situation that we see in the NBA.
We talked about Dallas defense being so good
in the
last 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
If not longer. That's not a thing that just automatically switches though. Like you can't just all of a sudden start playing great defense.
Yeah.
I mean, so what enables a team to start getting in that mode of of being that defensive minded group is how you guys have been doing it now for you know,
I think it just takes time. I mean, Jason came and you can see that some of the things they did in LA, he's doing it here. And that was a really good defense. And then they have physical defenders that have adopted his system, and they take away the paint. They're pretty intentional about that. But if you look at, the players they have length, they have physical players, they have tough-minded guys that come from good programs like Brunson. They have length in Porzingis. Kleber's just a tough dude. Finney Smith is tough. Hardaway doesn't get enough credit for how physical he is. So then you have a system in place that, has been pretty proven. Jason came out of that LA system, and we can see some of the remnants of that. So I think it just takes time to get guys to understand what you want to do and then actually go out there and do it.
The last thing I had was just asking about Booker's leadership and how that's progressed since been with him. What things have you seen him do or express or show that's showing, he's getting even better at that role?
It's hard to say, man. I mean, all of these, in my opinion, they get asked to do too much of it, to be straight. Okay. Sometimes in this world we live in, we expect the best players to automatically be leaders. And I think it forces them to do things that they really don't want to do. I think for me, I've just tried to ask guys to naturally just, when you can, lead, but don't force it. And I think that's what he's done. He hasn't forced it. But at the right time, he shows leadership qualities. And he's not afraid of that. And that's what I appreciate about Book. He didn't unnaturally start trying to lead. I think over time, he just picked his spots. And now he's more comfortable saying things. He probably always was, but he wasn't going to fake it. I think the thing that I've seen with him is in the off season, he's around a lot more. He knows how important that is. And I've not tried to push that on him because I understand people need their time away, but I've seen him in the gym where I've heard, like, I'll come to the gym in the morning and somebody will be like, hey, Book was here yesterday or last night. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then the work that he puts in front of the guys, we finished practice yesterday at whatever time. He stayed on the floor for another half hour. I think that has an impression on everybody.
Take a couple on Zoom. We'll go to Kellen Olson with Arizona Sports.
Hey, Monty, when you look at Dallas under Carlisle, they were one of the best offenses in the league, and now under Kidd, they're one of the best defenses, despite not changing much personnel. Just what do you think it says about them as a group to be able to kind of shift their identity in a way and still remain pretty successful?
I'm not quite sure. I don't know how to answer that properly. I would imagine they have veteran guys. It's hard to do that with a lot of young players. So I would imagine they have a lot more experience to be able to make that shift. And it's certainly working for them on the defensive end, but that's the only thing I could come up with is, they just have a lot of experience on their roster.
We'll go to Gerald Bourget with PHNX.
Hey, Monty, over the last 10 or 11 games, Campaign has put up some pretty efficient numbers for you guys. I know we had talked a few weeks ago and you had mentioned talking to him about once he gets past that first layer of the defense, looking for shooters or McGee or just being a little bit more composed. So I was just wanted to pick your brain about what you might have seen from him over the last handful of games or so.
He's obviously defending full court a lot more than he did earlier. And I think that just came with conditioning. He understands that impact and it helps us offensively. Just him getting up and playing 80 feet from the basket can disrupt rhythm. And then on offense, we just tried to ask him to consider taking the mid-range shot because when he plays with JaVale, the defensive big is in drop coverage. And it's hard to get to the basket at times like he did last year because he was playing with Dario and Frank at times in the second unit. And the big was worried about Dario popping. So he had a lot more opportunities to get to the basket. And I think, lately we've seen him, take a few more mid-range shots as opposed to trying to get all the way to the basket. That doesn't mean he can't get there, but I just think he's, in much better shape. He's getting consistent minutes, and I think he's learning how to play with a different group, Landry and JaVale. It's a lot different group than he played with last year.
Do you think that can kind of get taken for granted as far as like last year getting used to playing with a pick and pop big, a guy who can facilitate like Sharts versus a rim rolling guy like McGee, and then adding Shamet into that mix as well?
I'm sure it is. It's a totally different group. So I'm sure it just takes some time to get used to that.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you. Thank you.